The data is clear. Carbohydrate is going to improve endurance performance. In fact, if somebody consumes carbohydrates during extended exercise, and in this case, longer than 2 hours, a person is going to prevent low blood sugar or hypoglycemia, be able to maintain carbohydrate metabolism, delay fatigue, and feel that they're not exercising as hard. So you've got many reasons why it's going to be beneficial to consume carbohydrate, especially when you do exercise to exhaustion and also a time trial. Now for endurance exercise, it's really clear. For team or intermittent type sports, it's a little bit harder, so it's more difficult to have a clear recommendation, although when we get to those topics, I'll have something for you. The outcome on intermittent high intensity exercise has been, results show that it does seem to help when someone has a carbohydrate consumption versus a placebo. So here we have on a continuum, we have field sports, which are more short distance with bursts with football, field sports that require endurance like soccer, batting sports, and court sports. There is these 4 different categories depending on the energy demand, distance covered, duration. It's going to depend on how it's going to be beneficial. We can extrapolate from some of the findings that we have to identify that intermittent high intensity exercise can be beneficial when you have that high burst exercise, that carbohydrates are going to help with those sports. Certainly not going to hinder. During exercise, there is a maximal amount of absorption in the GI tract, and it's 1 to 1.1 grams per minute. So dosing heavy, overdosing or overconsumption is not going to, it's actually going to slow down the absorption or interfere with absorption. When it's consumed, if a person is exercising for a long period of time, the fluids really help to maintain hydration and carbohydrate delivery. And the sooner you start consuming, the better. So begin soon and be consistent throughout. And that's why water stations are placed specifically for races. So here you go, short duration, carbohydrate not really needed. Here 30 to 75 minutes, mouth rinse, and a mouth rinse is 5 to 10 seconds where you allow it to go in and then spit it out. That allows enough carbohydrate to get in, and the amount increases between 30, 60, and 90 depending upon the duration of the exercise. The amount that should be consumed, and this is from that chart that we looked at earlier in the previous presentation, the carbohydrate targets and the type of activity. Long, extreme activities over 4 to 5 hours, we're looking at 8 to 12 grams per kg per body weight. And we also want to make sure that we have a good base before that individual heads out. So to support the energy demands, we make those recommendations based on body weight, but we also have to alter based upon the athlete's needs and make these adjustments where to be, what to have that individual concern. So there's trial and error that's involved. So you have a normal good carbohydrate diet, as you get a week before your event, you're looking at tapering, putting more carbohydrate in your tank, exercising and stimulating that uptake, but doing it at a much lower intensity. Now you're up to a day before, 4 to 24 hours. Balance, familiar foods, higher intake. And here are some values. 1 to 4 hours, 3 to 4 grams per kg of body weight. Notice again we're looking at low fiber foods and potentially more complex, not simple carbohydrates. Now this is something that needs to be experimented with, but what you might find is that a beverage may be better tolerated as you get closer to the event. So a carbohydrate beverage, one fluid before exercise, might be tolerated better. And you'll see in your book that there's some suggestions about exercise or breakfast in terms of bagel, pancakes, fruit, toast, peanut butter, whatever that person can tolerate. When you get within an hour of the exercise, it's going to be a window that is going to be determined by the athlete's preference and tolerance. Now, if the athlete is not going to be able to or will not consume fuel during their training, it's especially important to get some in closer to the beginning of the event. 25 to 30 grams of carbohydrate is thought to be a good amount less than an hour before exercise. Now, what can happen if somebody consumes carbohydrate, or when you consume carbohydrate, your insulin level spikes, which causes the blood glucose to be pulled into the cells. That could cause a rebound low blood glucose or rebound hypoglycemia. But it appears that that's not as problematic as it once thought that it was. Things to consider is low fiber, low fat, low protein, because it's going to slow the digestion, absorption, and it can also cause discomfort for the athlete. There are the delivery of the carbohydrate can be a gel, a bar, or a drink, but it needs to be something rapidly available, rapidly accessible, easily digested. And so dextrose, sucrose, maltodextrin, those gels, a beverage, something that's going to be tolerated well. It's just going to be based upon what the individual feels most comfortable with and the kind of exercise that they're doing. If the recovery time is short recovery time, and we're talking athletes that have multiple events in a day, then you want to have that after your first event, you want to get in that carbohydrate of 1 to 1.2 grams per kg per hour every hour for the first 4 to 6 hours post-exercise. Then you should be able to just have your resume regular practice after the event. So if you've got a 2 a day, that carbohydrate's going to be necessary. A good dose in between the practice or the games will be important. If you have greater recovery time, still you want to make sure that you're getting that high post-exercise carbohydrate. You need to get to your daily needs, and it takes 20 to 24 hours to get the glycogen back to good standards. However, if somebody's been on a low carbohydrate diet, it'll take longer. Here's a summary. So 1 to 4 hours before your value, 1 to 4 grams per kg. You're less than an hour before, 25 to 30. Take a dose. During exercise, depending upon how long, if it's 30 to 60 minutes, or if it's, over 60 minutes, 30 to 60 grams per hour. If somebody's exercising longer than that, we're looking at 90. 90. After exercise, 1 to 1.1, 1.2 grams per kg, especially if you have a short recovery time, and if your recovery time is greater than 8 hours, you want to plan adequately to make sure you're getting enough carbohydrate that during that time to replenish your glycogen.